The emergency alarm echoed through the massive halls of Loomis Prime, the diplomatic station that floated in neutral space between 100 different star systems. Ambassador Quan walked quickly through the corridor, his formal uniform pressed and perfect despite the early morning call. He had been sleeping when the message came through. Emergency session. All ambassadors required. No exceptions. This was only the third emergency session in the 300 years since the Galactic Council formed. The first had been a plague that threatened to wipe out biological life. The second had been a star going supernova near populated space. Quan wondered what disaster awaited them today. The council chamber was already full when he arrived. Representatives from 847 different species filled the curved rows of seats. Some breathed oxygen like humans. Others floated in tanks of methane or stood in fields of radiation that would kill Quan in seconds. The galaxy was diverse, and the council represented all of it. Quan found his seat in the back row. Humanity was new here. Only 50 years had passed since Earth joined the council, and that membership came with conditions. The other species still saw humans as young and dangerous. They remembered the wars humanity fought to expand into space. They remembered the aggressive way humans claimed systems and built colonies. The Council allowed humanity to join only after forcing strict limits on Earth's military. 200 ships, they said. No more. That was the price of peace. High Chancellor Velthar called the meeting to order. The crystalline being stood at the center of the chamber, his body reflecting light in patterns that translated to speech. "The outer rim is falling," Velthar announced. 23 civilizations have been destroyed in the past 6 months. The enemy is called the Devourers, and they are unlike anything we have faced before. Holographic images filled the air above the chamber floor. Quan watched as the playback showed massive ships appearing from dark space. They were not elegant like council vessels. They looked like insects made of metal, all angles and sharp edges. The images showed them attacking a planet. Millions of lives disappeared in hours. The Devourer ships broke down everything they touched, consuming matter and energy, growing stronger with each world they destroyed. "Our combined fleets have engaged them 7 times, Velthar continued. His translated voice carried sadness. 7 times we have been defeated. The Devourers adapt to our weapons. They learn from each battle. Our energy shields are useless against them now. Our plasma weapons barely slow them down. They are moving toward the galactic core, and nothing stops them." An ambassador from the avian species stood, her feathers ruffled with agitation. "What are our options, Chancellor? Surely the Council's wisdom can find a solution." Velthar dimmed slightly, which Quan had learned meant the crystalline species was showing respect for the dead. "We are forming a Grand Alliance fleet. Every member species will contribute ships and personnel. We will meet the Devourers at the Theta Nexus in 40 days. It will be the largest military force ever assembled." Quan raised his hand to speak. The chamber fell quiet. Some species whispered to each other. Humans rarely spoke in council sessions. They knew their place. "High Chancellor," Quan said, keeping his voice respectful, "Earth would like to offer assistance. Our fleet is small by treaty, but our military has experience fighting enemies that adapt and learn. We could provide tactical support or—" "No." Velthar's interruption was firm. "Humanity's involvement is not required. Your species has been members for less than a century. Your military tactics are primitive and reckless. This is a matter for civilized warfare, conducted according to the ancient codes of honor that govern galactic conflict." Another ambassador, a floating squid-like being from the water worlds, added his voice. "Humans wage war like savages. You fight to destroy, not to achieve diplomatic victory. The galaxy does not need your barbarism." Quan felt his jaw tighten, but he remained calm. "With respect, esteemed members, the Devourers are not following codes of honor. They are not interested in diplomatic victory. They want extinction. Perhaps methods outside traditional warfare. The discussion is closed, Velthar said. The Chancellor's tone left no room for argument. Earth will remain in its designated space. Your defense fleet will protect human worlds. That is all. The session continued for hours as the Council planned their grand alliance. They would gather 3,000 ships from 84 different species. They would fight the Devourers according to the rules of engagement that had governed galactic warfare for millennia. Long-range combat, energy weapons, shields and maneuvering, everything civilized and proper. Quan sat quietly and watched. He took notes on everything: numbers of ships, types of weapons, battle formations. The Council shared this information freely because they did not see humans as a threat. They saw Earth as a child that needed protection and guidance. When the session ended, Quan returned to his quarters and opened a secure communication channel to Earth. The signal would take minutes to reach Luna Command, where Admiral Day coordinated human military operations. Quan recorded his message carefully. "Admiral, the Council has refused our assistance. They are forming an alliance fleet of 3,000 ships to engage the Devourers at Theta Nexus. I am attaching all tactical data I collected during the session." Quan paused, considering his next words carefully. "Sir, I also obtained classified intelligence through back channels. The projections are not good. The Council's fleet has a 3% chance of success. The Devourers will reach the galactic core, including Earth's sector, in 8 months if the alliance fails." Quan ended the recording and sent it via quantum link. Then he sat in the darkness of his quarters and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Devourers were consuming worlds. And the galaxy, in all its pride and ancient wisdom, was about to learn a terrible lesson about the cost of arrogance. On Earth, in the underground command center beneath Luna's surface, Admiral Day received the message. He was a career military officer, 40 years of service, and he had prepared for this moment. He contacted President Hana immediately. "Madame President," Day said when her face appeared on his screen, "the Council has rejected our help. They think 200 ships is all we have." He allowed himself a small smile. "Should I activate Protocol Bulwark?" President Hana looked tired. The weight of leadership showed in her eyes, but her voice was steady. "Yes, Admiral. If the galaxy will not accept our help through official channels, then we prepare our real fleet. The Council called us warmongers once. Let us prove them right and save them anyway." Day nodded and closed the connection. He turned to his staff officers. "Contact all fleet commanders. Tell them to begin deployment of all assets. Every ship, every weapon, everything we built while the galaxy was not watching." The orders went out across human space. In the asteroid belt, massive hangars opened for the first time. In the Kuiper belt, hidden shipyards activated. In uninhabited systems throughout Earth's territory, the real fleet began to wake up. The galaxy had demanded humanity be harmless, but harmless meant extinct, and humanity had no intention of dying quietly. Captain Jin stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Indomitable and watched his crew prepare for departure. The ship was enormous, nearly 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that no Council inspector had ever seen. It was one of 47 Titan-class vessels that humanity built in secret over the past 5 decades. The treaty with the Council allowed Earth 200 ships for defense. Those ships existed. They patrolled human space openly, visible to any Council observer who cared to watch. Inspectors came regularly to count them and verify compliance. Earth always passed inspection. What the inspectors never knew was that those 200 ships represented less than 2% of humanity's actual military strength. Jin walked through the bridge, checking stations. His crew worked with practiced efficiency. They had trained for years, waiting for the moment when the real fleet would be needed. Today was that day. "Status report," Jin said to his second officer. "All systems green, Captain. Weapons armed and ready. Crew at full readiness. We can launch on your command. Jin nodded. Around the Indomitable, dozens of other ships prepared for the same journey. This battle group alone consisted of 8 dreadnoughts, 30 cruisers, and 50 destroyers. It was one of 12 such groups positioned throughout human space. The total fleet numbered 8,000 warships. In a secure conference room deep inside the ship, Commander Yuna briefed the senior officers. She was head of naval intelligence, and her job for the past 20 years had been studying every species in the Council. She knew their weapons, their tactics, their military doctrines better than they knew themselves. "Gather around," Yuna said as the officers entered. Holographic displays lit up the room, showing ships and battle formations. "What I am about to tell you is why we will win, and why the Council will lose." The officers took their seats. Jin recognized most of them. These were humanity's best commanders, trained in secret, promoted in shadow. The galaxy did not know their names, but they would soon. Yuna continued. "The Council has been at peace for 300 years. Yes, they fight wars, but they fight them according to ancient rules. Energy weapons at long range, shields and maneuvering, diplomatic posturing between volleys, warfare as ritual, warfare as politics, warfare as everything except what it truly is." She highlighted a council ship on the display. "Their vessels are beautiful, elegant, efficient, but they are designed for a type of combat that no longer exists. The Devourers do not follow the rules. They adapt, they learn, they destroy, and the Council keeps fighting them the same way, expecting different results." Yuna switched the display to show a human warship. The contrast was stark. Where Council ships were smooth and streamlined, human ships looked brutal. They were covered in armor plating, redundant systems, and weapons that jutted from every angle. "For 50 years, we studied galactic warfare," Yuna said. "We learned every doctrine, every strategy, every treaty that restricts how the Council fights. Then we did something radical. We ignored all of it. We built ships designed to win, not to look civilized while losing." She pulled up specifications on human weapons systems. The officers leaned forward, fascinated despite having seen these briefings before. Repetition was part of training. "The Council banned kinetic weapons centuries ago. Too destructive, they said, too barbaric. So we built railguns that fire tungsten rods at 30% of light speed. The Devourers have adapted to energy shields. Shields mean nothing against pure kinetic mass." Another display. "The Council outlawed nanite weapons. Too unpredictable, too difficult to control. We perfected them. Our nanite swarms can eat a ship from the inside out in minutes." More weapons scrolled past. Nuclear-pumped lasers, electromagnetic pulse bombs, relativistic missiles, and the weapon that made even Jin uncomfortable. Shredder rounds, hypervelocity projectiles that exploded into thousands of fragments, each one capable of puncturing a ship's hull. "The galaxy called us warmongers," Yuna said quietly. "They were not wrong. We are good at war. We have fought each other for thousands of years. We learned how to kill efficiently, how to destroy completely, how to win at any cost. The Council forgot those lessons. We never did." She deactivated the display and looked at the assembled officers. 40 days from now, the Council's Alliance fleet will engage the Devourers at Theta Nexus. They will lose. Our projections show 90% casualties, maybe higher. The survivors will retreat to the Aegis Line, the last defensive position before the Galactic Core. "That is where we will meet them," Yuna said. "We will arrive with our full fleet, and we will show the galaxy what humanity built, while they were not paying attention." The briefing ended. The officers returned to their ships. Across human space, 8,000 vessels prepared for departure. It was the largest military deployment in human history, and no one outside Earth's territory knew it was happening. President Hana addressed the fleet via quantum link. Her face appeared on every screen, in every ready room, on every ship. Jin watched from his command chair as she spoke. To all personnel of the Terran Defense Fleet, Hana began. Today we launched the largest military operation humanity has ever undertaken. The Galactic Council rejected our help. They called us primitive. They called us dangerous. They limited our fleet because they feared what we might do. She paused. Jin could see the determination in her eyes. They were right to fear us, not because we want to conquer, not because we seek power, but because when survival is at stake, humanity fights like no other species in the galaxy. We fight to win. We fight to protect. We fight because the alternative is extinction. The galaxy is dying, Hana continued. 23 civilizations are already gone, trillions of lives erased. The Devourers are coming, and the Council's alliance will not stop them, so we will. Not because the Council asked, not because they deserve it, but because it is the right thing to do. Her voice grew stronger. You carry humanity's future. You carry the galaxy's hope, whether they know it or not. Fight well, fight smart, and come home alive. Earth is counting on you. The transmission ended. Jin stood and addressed his crew. You heard the President. We launch in 1 hour. This is what we trained for. This is why we exist. Check your stations one more time. Then we show the galaxy what the human race can do when pushed to the edge. The Indomitable's engines powered up. Across the fleet, 8,000 ships did the same. The journey to the Aegis line would take 6 weeks at maximum FTL speed. They would arrive exactly when needed. But first, the Council's alliance fleet would have to face the Devourers. Jin pulled up the tactical projections that Yuna's intelligence team prepared. 3,000 Council ships against 10,000 Devourers. The math was not complicated. They are going to die, Jin's second officer said quietly, looking at the same projections. Yes, Jin agreed. Many of them will, but not all. We will save who we can, and then we end this threat permanently. The Indomitable jumped to FTL, and 7,999 ships followed. Humanity's real fleet was going to war, and the galaxy would never be the same. The battle at Theta Nexus lasted 4 hours. The Council's Grand Alliance fleet of 3,000 ships faced the Devourers with courage and determination. They fought according to the ancient codes. They maintained formation. They used approved weapons and followed proper engagement protocols. And they died. Ambassador Quan watched from the Council command ship, safe in the rear positions. He was not military, but they allowed diplomats to observe so they could report what they witnessed. What Quan witnessed was slaughter. The Devourers came in waves. Their ships moved wrong, Quan thought. They did not maneuver like vessels should. They jerked and twisted in ways that seemed to violate physics. The Council fleet opened fire at maximum range with energy weapons, bright beams of plasma and coherent light that lit up the darkness of space. The Devourers adapted. Within minutes, their hulls changed composition. The energy weapons that worked in the first exchange became useless in the second. Council ships switched to secondary weapons. The Devourers adapted again. It was like fighting smoke. Every tactic failed. Every strategy collapsed. Quan watched as a cruiser from the avian species took direct hits. Its shields flared and died. The Devourer ships swarmed it like insects, breaking it apart piece by piece. The crew had no time to evacuate. They simply ceased to exist. This pattern repeated across the battlefield. The Council fleet fought bravely, but bravery meant nothing against an enemy that learned from every attack. High Chancellor Velthar commanded from the fleet's flagship. His crystalline body flickered with stress as he gave orders, trying to find some combination of tactics that would work. All ships, pattern Delta, Velthar commanded. Concentrate fire on their command vessels. The fleet obeyed. 200 ships focused their weapons on what appeared to be a Devourer flagship. For a moment, it seemed to work. The enemy ship's hull glowed white-hot under the bombardment. Then it split into a dozen smaller ships, each one fully functional, and the attack became pointless. The Devourers pressed forward. They ignored losses. Each destroyed ship seemed to feed data to the others. They were learning faster than the Council could adapt. Quan realized they were not fighting ships. They were fighting one distributed intelligence spread across thousands of hulls. "Chancellor, we must retreat," an admiral urged. The bat-like creature's wings trembled. "We cannot win this engagement." Velthar dimmed. It was the crystalline species equivalent of shaking their head. "We hold the line." "The galaxy depends on us." But the line did not hold. The Devourers broke through the center formation. Council ships scattered. Some tried to maintain cohesion. Others fled individually. The organized fleet became a mob, and mobs die easily. Quan's ship shuddered as a Devourer passed close by. Alarms shrieked. The captain shouted orders. They barely escaped. Quan looked at his display and saw the flagship taking heavy fire. Velthar's ship was surrounded. "Chancellor, evacuate!" someone begged over the common channel. "The Council does not abandon its post," Velthar replied. Those were his last words. The flagship exploded in a ball of white light, and the crystalline Chancellor was gone. The battle became a rout. Ships fled in every direction. Of 3,000 vessels, only 400 made it out. Quan's ship was among the survivors. They jumped to FTL the moment they could and did not stop until they reached the Aegis Line. The Aegis Line was the last defensive position before the Galactic Core. It was a network of stations, defensive satellites, and minefields built centuries ago when the Council still remembered how to prepare for war. Now it would be tested. The surviving 400 ships gathered at the line. They were damaged, demoralized, and facing an enemy that they could not defeat. Quan stood on the bridge of the temporary command ship and listened to the reports. 10,000 Devourer ships were coming. They would arrive in days. "Send messages to all Council worlds," the new commander ordered. She was from the avian species, an admiral named Saris, who survived when her flagship was destroyed. "Tell them the line will hold as long as possible. Tell them to prepare for evacuation." Quan knew what that meant. It meant they had given up. The line would fall, and the Devourers would consume the Galactic Core. Billions would die, maybe trillions. He sent a final message to Earth, knowing he would probably not survive to see the response. "Admiral Day, this is Ambassador Quan. The Council fleet is destroyed. We lost Chancellor Velthar and 2,600 ships. The Devourers are coming to the Aegis Line. We estimate final engagement in 70 hours. It has been an honor to serve Earth. I hope humanity survives what comes next." Quan closed the transmission and waited for death. 3 days passed. The Devourers arrived exactly when predicted. 10,000 ships emerged from FTL and began their approach to the Aegis Line. The 400 Council ships prepared for a last stand. They would fight and die, and it would not matter. Then the sensors went insane. 8,000 new ships dropped out of FTL. They appeared in perfect formation, spread across a defensive sphere that surrounded the Aegis Line. The Council fleet's displays lit up with warnings and questions. Unknown vessels, unknown configurations, unknown weapons signatures. Quan stared at his screen in shock. He recognized those ships. He had seen their designs in classified briefings. Those were human vessels, but this was impossible. Earth only had 200 ships, and they were small defense platforms, not these massive dreadnoughts and cruisers. Admiral Cyrus' feathers stood on end. Where did they come from? Are we being invaded? Then a transmission came through on all frequencies. A human voice, calm and professional. Quan recognized it immediately. Admiral Day. "Council Fleet, this is Admiral Day of the Terran Defense Navy. We received your distress call. Humanity is responding. All Council ships, fall back to secondary positions. We will engage the enemy." The Council Command Bridge erupted in confusion. Some admirals demanded explanations. Others accused humanity of treaty violations. A few simply stared at the display in disbelief. Quan allowed himself a small smile. Earth had lied. For 50 years, humanity told the Council that 200 ships was their entire fleet, and the Council believed it because they saw humans as primitive children who could not deceive sophisticated civilizations. The Devourers detected the human fleet and changed their approach. 4,000 ships split off to engage this new enemy. They had consumed Council vessels easily. These new ships would be the same. They were wrong. The human fleet opened fire, but they did not use energy weapons. Instead, massive railguns spoke, hurling tungsten rods at impossible speeds. The Devourers' adaptive shields, tuned to disperse energy, did nothing against solid matter traveling at 30% of light speed. 300 Devourer ships exploded in the first salvo. Debris clouds expanded where vessels used to be. The machines tried to adapt, changing their hull composition, adjusting their defensive posture. It did not matter. Kinetic energy cared nothing for adaptation. Then the human fleet released something else. Quan watched on his sensors as clouds of nanites deployed from the human ships. Microscopic machines. Billions of them, spreading through space. They touched Devourer hulls and began to eat. The machine's metal dissolved. Systems failed. 500 ships went dark as the nanites consumed them from within. Captain Jin's dreadnought, the Indomitable, led the charge into the thickest concentration of enemy ships. Quan could hear the transmission as Jin gave orders to his fleet. All weapons free. Show them what 50 years of preparation looks like. No mercy, no quarter. This ends today. The human ships fought with a ferocity that shocked Quan. They did not maintain formation like civilized fleets. They swarmed. They attacked from multiple angles. They used weapons the Council banned centuries ago. Shredder rounds exploded among clustered Devourer ships, turning dozens into scrap with each shot. Missiles accelerated to relativistic speeds and punched through hulls like they were paper. Every time the Devourers adapted to one weapon, the humans switched to another. They had arsenals of forbidden technology, and they used all of it without hesitation. This was not civilized warfare. This was extermination. The battle raged for 18 hours. Quan watched it all. He saw human ships destroyed. He saw crews die. But for every human vessel that fell, dozens of Devourers were eliminated. The mathematics were simple and brutal. The humans traded lives for total victory, and they were willing to pay the price. Commander Yuna led a strike group into dark space, pursuing Devourers that tried to retreat. Her transmission came back cold and clear. No survivors, no second chances. When it ended, all 10,000 Devourer ships were gone. The threat that destroyed 23 civilizations that shattered the Council's Grand Alliance had been eliminated in less than a day. But the cost was high. Humanity lost 1,200 ships and 34,000 sailors. The silence after battle felt heavier than the noise during it. Captain Jin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and looked at the casualty reports. 1,200 ships destroyed. 34,000 humans dead. They were numbers on a screen, but Jin knew they were more than that. Each number represented someone who would never go home. "Captain, Council fleet is hailing us," his communications officer reported. Jin straightened his uniform. "Put them through." Admiral Saris appeared on the screen. Her avian features showed confusion and something else. Fear. Jin realized. She was afraid of humanity now. "Captain Jin, on behalf of the surviving Council fleet, I thank you for your intervention. You saved us." She paused. "But I must ask how this fleet exists. The treaty allows Earth only 200 ships." Jin kept his expression neutral. "Admiral, I am a military officer. Questions about treaties should be directed to diplomatic channels. For now, We have wounded to tend and debris to clear. I suggest we focus on survival before we discuss politics." The transmission ended. Jin knew it was only a temporary delay. The council would demand answers, and those answers would be uncomfortable for everyone. Across the Aegis line, human ships began rescue operations. They pulled survivors from damaged council vessels. They provided medical supplies. They helped repair crippled ships. Junior Officer Minho coordinated supply convoys, making sure food and medicine reached every station that needed it. "Sir, the council crews are confused," Minho reported to his commander. "They do not understand why we are helping them. Some think it is a trick." The commander smiled sadly. "Tell them it is what decent people do. We fight when we must. We help when we can. That is the human way." But not everyone appreciated the help. In the Council's temporary command center, accusations flew. Ambassador Quan attended the emergency meeting and listened to species blame humanity for deception, for treaty violations, for having weapons that should not exist. "Earth lied to us," shouted an ambassador from the aquatic species. His tank bubbled with agitation. For 50 years they maintained a secret fleet. "They built forbidden weapons. They violated every agreement." Quan waited for the noise to die down before speaking. "Yes, we lied. Yes, we built ships you did not know about. Yes, we developed weapons you banned. And because we did those things, you are alive to accuse us. The Devourers would have reached Earth in 8 months. Do you think we should have sat quietly and waited for extinction?" "You could have told us," another ambassador argued. "We could have worked together." "We offered to help at Theta Nexus," Quan replied. "High Chancellor Velthar called us primitive. He called our tactics barbaric. He refused our aid. So yes, we prepared in secret because the galaxy made it clear that asking permission meant being denied." The arguments continued for hours. Some species demanded humanity be expelled from the Council. Others, particularly those who lost entire worlds to the Devourers, spoke in favor of humanity. The room divided into factions, and no consensus emerged. Finally, Interim Chancellor Sarvox called for order. The avian diplomat had been elected as temporary leader after Velthar's death. "We will convene a formal tribunal," Sarvox announced. "Ambassador Quan, you will answer charges of treaty violation. The Council will decide humanity's fate." Quan bowed respectfully, but inside he felt anger building. Humanity saved them, and now they wanted a trial. Meanwhile, Commander Yuna was making a different discovery. Her intelligence teams analyzed the wreckage of Devourer ships. What they found disturbed her enough to bring it directly to Admiral Day. "Sir, the Devourers were not attacking randomly," Yuna explained, displaying her findings on a holographic screen. "Look at their movement patterns. They bypassed some populated systems entirely. They went straight for others. There is a pattern." Day studied the map. They were heading toward something specific. "Yes, sir. There is a massive energy signature in the galactic core. The Devourers were moving toward it deliberately. They were not trying to exterminate all life. They were trying to reach that location before anyone could stop them." This information changed everything. Day immediately contacted the Council and demanded access to their historical archives. At first, they refused. Then he made it clear that humanity just saved their civilization and deserved some trust in return. Reluctantly, the Council opened their secret records. What Yuna found there explained everything. And it was worse than anyone imagined. 800 years ago, the Council discovered an ancient facility deep in the galactic core. It was built by a precursor civilization, a species that existed millions of years before any current Council member evolved. The facility was vast, containing technology and knowledge beyond anything the galaxy had seen. The Council's founders studied the facility and became terrified. The knowledge inside was too dangerous, too powerful, technology that could reshape reality, weapons that could destroy stars, medical advances that could make species immortal. All of it was available, and all of it was terrifying. So the council made a decision. They sealed the facility. They erased all records of its location from public archives. They agreed that this knowledge should remain hidden forever. Only the highest levels of council leadership knew the truth, and they passed it down through generations as a sacred secret. But secrets have a way of creating problems. The facility had guardians. The precursors built an artificial intelligence to protect their legacy. That intelligence was the Devourers. A council historian named Cal, an elderly serpentine being who served as keeper of forbidden knowledge, explained this to the tribunal. The Devourers were never meant to destroy. They were archivists, programmed to protect the repository. But their programming included a directive: eliminate any species that rediscovers the facility. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. The Council's expansion into the galactic core triggered the Devourers. The Council's own secrets caused the war that killed billions. Quan stood before the tribunal and let this information settle. Then he spoke. You accused humanity of deception. You accused us of building forbidden weapons. But your secrets nearly caused galactic extinction. You hid knowledge that could have prepared us for the Devourers. You prioritized control over safety. He looked around at the assembled ambassadors. Humanity lied about our fleet size. We are guilty of that. But we lied to survive in a galaxy that treated us as dangerous children while keeping secrets that threatened everyone. We are not the only ones who owe explanations. Ambassador Saris stood. Her feathers had lost their earlier agitation. Ambassador Quan speaks truth. The Council failed. We failed our member species. We failed those who died. And we almost failed humanity by refusing help when it was offered. She turned to face the other ambassadors. I move that all charges against Earth be dismissed. Furthermore, I move that we dissolve the current council structure and reform it with humanity as a full and equal member. The vote took hours. Some species could not let go of their anger at humanity's deception, but others recognized that without humanity's hidden fleet, they would all be dead. In the end, the motion passed by a narrow margin. The treaty restrictions on humanity were removed. Earth could maintain whatever military force it deemed necessary. In return, humanity agreed to share its military technology and help rebuild the Council's defense capabilities. President Hana addressed the reformed Council via transmission. No more secrets. No more hiding knowledge because we fear it. The galaxy survived because humanity prepared for the worst while you hoped for the best. That approach changes now. We will work together, transparently, to ensure this never happens again. The galactic community began to transform. The old council had been based on trust among elder species and restrictions on newer ones. The new council would be based on mutual defense and shared information. It would not be easy. Old habits die hard. But the alternative was extinction, and they had all seen that alternative too clearly. Captain Jin attended a memorial service aboard the Indomitable. 34,000 names were read aloud. It took 6 hours. Each name represented a life given so others could live. Jin stood at attention the entire time, honoring those who would never see home again. When it ended, his second officer approached. Captain, was it worth it? The cost was so high. Jin looked out at the stars, at the galaxy they saved. Ask the trillions who are still alive because of what we did. They will have different opinions, but I know this. We fought because it was necessary. We died because someone had to. And we won because humanity never learned how to quit. The fleet began to disperse, some ships returning to Earth, others remaining at the Aegis line to help rebuild. The galaxy was safe for now, but everyone knew the universe was vast and dangerous. Other threats would come. The difference now was that the galaxy would face them together, with humanity as an equal partner rather than a restricted child. The era of secrets had ended. The age of cooperation had begun. And it started because humanity refused to die quietly. 6 months after the battle at the Aegis Line, the galaxy looked different. Not in appearance, the stars still burned the same, but in the way species related to each other. Fear and suspicion had given way to cooperation born from shared trauma. Everyone remembered how close they came to extinction. The new council met in a different station. They demolished the old Loomis Prime and built something new called Unity Station. The name was intentional, a reminder that survival required working together. Ambassador Quan walked through its halls and marveled at the change. Human ships docked alongside council vessels. Human officers trained council crews in tactics. The walls that separated species were coming down. "Ambassador, you are needed in the main chamber," an aide informed him. "The vote on the Aegis Charter is today." Quan straightened his uniform and headed to the chamber. The Aegis Charter was humanity's proposal for a new galactic constitution. It covered everything from military cooperation to knowledge sharing to how species should handle dangerous discoveries. Writing it took months of negotiation. Getting it passed would be even harder. The chamber was full. All 847 species sent representatives. The number was smaller than it used to be. 23 civilizations were gone, consumed by the devourers. Empty seats served as reminders of what happened when the galaxy was unprepared. President Hana attended in person. She rarely left Earth, but this vote was important enough to make the journey. She sat in the human delegation area and nodded to Quan as he entered. They had prepared for this moment. Interim Chancellor Sarvox called the session to order. "Today we vote on the Aegis Charter, a proposal that will fundamentally change how our galaxy operates. Ambassador Quan, please present the final version." Quan stood and activated the holographic display. The charter's text appeared in 847 languages simultaneously. Esteemed members, the Aegis Charter is built on 2 simple principles. First, trust but verify. We will share knowledge and coordinate defense, but we will also maintain the capability to protect ourselves. Second, we are stronger together than divided. He pulled up the first major section. Article 1 establishes the Unified Defense Fleet. Every species contributes ships and personnel. Command rotates among species, with decisions made collectively. No single species controls the fleet, and no species is excluded from it. Some ambassadors nodded. Others looked uncomfortable. The aquatic species representative raised a tentacle. "What prevents humanity from dominating this fleet? You have more ships than anyone." "Numbers are not the same as control," Quan replied. "Yes, Earth contributes the largest contingent, roughly 30% of total forces. But command decisions require majority vote among all species. One species cannot override the others, regardless of fleet size." The next section addressed the precursor facility. Article 2 creates a joint research project. The repository in the galactic core will be studied under strict supervision. All discoveries are shared equally. All species have access to the knowledge. An elderly ambassador from a reptilian species hissed skeptically. "That knowledge destroyed the precursors. How do we know it will not destroy us?" President Hana stood to answer. "We do not know. But hiding from knowledge does not make us safer. It makes us ignorant. The precursors destroyed themselves through war, and they built the devourers as a warning to prevent others from repeating their mistakes. We honor that warning by learning from it, not by pretending it does not exist." The debate continued for hours. Some species wanted stronger restrictions, others wanted more autonomy. But the core principles remained. Share knowledge. Coordinate defense. Trust each other while maintaining capability to protect yourselves. Finally, the vote was called. Species by species, the tally came in. The chamber held its breath. When the final count displayed, the charter passed with 78% approval. It was not unanimous, but it was enough. Sarvox announced the result. The Aegis Charter is adopted. Let this mark the beginning of a new era for our galaxy. Across human space, memorial services continued. Luna Command built a wall of names, black stone inscribed with 34,000 individuals who died at the Aegis line. Commander Yuna attended the dedication ceremony. She had lost friends in the battle, good people who would never see another sunrise. They fought so the galaxy could live, read the inscription at the wall's base. Yuna touched one of the names, a young officer she trained personally. "I hope we are worth what you paid," she whispered. Admiral Day stood nearby. He had aged in the past months. The weight of command always took its toll, but sending thousands to their deaths left permanent marks. "Commander, the first joint training exercise begins next week. The Council wants us to teach their crews human tactics." Yuna nodded. "How much do we teach them, sir? Everything?" "Everything," Day confirmed. "No more secrets. That is what we demanded from them. We have to live by the same standard." At the precursor repository, deep in the galactic core, the joint research team began their work. Dr. Suman led the human contingent. She was a physicist who spent her career studying ancient technologies. Now she stood before the greatest discovery in galactic history. The repository was enormous, a structure built into the fabric of space itself. Its halls contained knowledge from a civilization that existed for millions of years. Technology beyond comprehension, history of 100 dead civilizations, medical advances that could cure diseases the galaxy considered incurable. "Be careful," warned one of the Council researchers, a crystalline being named Toll. This knowledge destroyed the precursors. They became too powerful too quickly. Suman examined a data terminal. The precursors did not fall because of knowledge. They fell because they could not stop fighting each other. They built weapons that could destroy stars, and then they used those weapons. That is the lesson we need to learn. The team worked slowly and carefully. Every discovery was documented and shared across the galaxy. Some technologies were deemed too dangerous and locked away again. Others were released gradually with safeguards and oversight. The goal was not to race toward power, but to grow responsibly. Meanwhile, Captain Jin took command of the first integrated battle group. His crew was now mixed, humans alongside 20 different species. It created challenges. Different species needed different atmospheres, different food, different rest cycles, but they made it work. Junior Officer Minho, now promoted to full lieutenant, helped coordinate the diversity. "Sir, the avian crew members are requesting earlier meal times. Their metabolism requires more frequent eating." "Approved," Jin said. "Adjust the schedule accordingly. We adapt to each other. That is the point of this exercise." The battle group's first mission was patrol duty in the Outer Rim, watching for threats in the dark spaces where the Devourers came from. They found nothing dangerous, but that was not the real purpose. The mission was about learning to work together, building trust through shared duty. One night, Jin stood on the observation deck with several officers from other species. They looked at the stars and talked about their homes, their families, their dreams. It was a small moment, but Jin recognized its significance. These species had been strangers 6 months ago. Now they were crewmates. "Captain, may I ask a question?" said an aquatic officer. "Why did humanity help us? You could have used the Devourers as leverage, forced concessions, gained power. Instead, you saved us and asked for nothing." Jin considered the question. "Because it was right. The galaxy treated us poorly, yes. But letting billions die to prove a point is not justice. It is just cruelty. Humanity has done cruel things in our history. We try to do better now." Back on Earth, President Hana prepared for her next address to the Council. She reviewed the past 6 months. The Aegis Charter was implemented. The Unified Defense Fleet was operational. The Joint Research Project was making progress. Species that once saw humanity as dangerous children now worked alongside human crews as equals. But challenges remained. Some species still distrusted humans. Some resented the military power Earth possessed. Some feared that humanity would dominate the galaxy eventually. Hana knew these fears would not disappear quickly. Trust took time. "Madame President, the Council is ready for your transmission," an aide informed her. Hana activated the communication link. Her face appeared in the Council chamber on Unity Station. "Esteemed members, I report that all human commitments under the Aegis Charter are being fulfilled. We have shared our military technology. We have integrated our forces with Council units. We have contributed to the Joint Research Project. We are doing what we promised." She paused, looking at the assembled ambassadors. "But I also want to address the concerns some of you have raised. Yes, Earth maintains a large fleet. Yes, we have powerful weapons. Yes, we fought the Devourers with tactics you consider barbaric. And yes, some of you fear what humanity might become." "Let me be clear," Hana continued. "Humanity learned war the hard way, through thousands of years of fighting each other. We are good at it because we had to be. But being good at war does not mean we seek war. We wanted peace. The galaxy gave us restrictions instead of partnership. We built our fleet in secret because asking permission meant being denied." Her voice softened slightly. "We know you are afraid. The galaxy just learned that the species you called primitive and dangerous was hiding enough firepower to dominate all of you. But consider what we did with that power. We saved you. We could have demanded tribute, territory, or submission. Instead, we asked for equality and cooperation. Judge us by our actions, not your fears." The transmission ended. Hana leaned back in her chair. She had said what needed saying. Now it was up to the galaxy to decide if they believed her. Months turned into years. The Unified Defense Fleet conducted patrols and exercises. No major threats emerged, but minor conflicts arose. Pirates, border disputes, resources disagreements. The fleet handled them with professionalism and restraint. Admiral Day eventually retired, handing command to a younger generation. Captain Jin took his place as Supreme Commander of the Unified Defense Fleet. It was a position of enormous responsibility, and Jin felt the weight of it daily. On his first day as Supreme Commander, Jin stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, now designated as the fleet flagship. His crew was 70% non-human now. The integration had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. "Sir, all fleet groups report ready," Officer Minho, now his second-in-command, said. Jin looked at the starfield ahead. They were heading back to the outer rim where the Devourers first appeared. Intelligence suggested there might be more machine intelligences in dark space. The galaxy needed to be ready. "All ships, prepare for FTL jump," Jin commanded. "We have a galaxy to protect." The fleet jumped, 8,000 ships moving as one. Human vessels flew alongside Council ships, species that once fought wars against each other now working together. It was not perfect. Prejudices remained, suspicions lingered. But they were trying, and that mattered. Ambassador Quan, now serving as Earth's representative on the Permanent Aegis Council, watched the fleet depart from Unity Station. He thought about the journey that brought them here. The battle at the Aegis line felt like ancient history now, but it had only been 2 years. "Do you think we will face another threat like the Devourers?" asked Ambassador Saris, standing beside him. Quan nodded slowly. "Probably. The galaxy is vast. Dangers we cannot imagine are out there. But next time, we will be ready, and we will face them together." "The galaxy cried for aid," Sari said softly. "Humanity answered." "Yes," Quan agreed. "And in answering, both humanity and the galaxy found something more valuable than victory. We found partnership. We found trust. We found hope. The stars continued to burn. The galaxy continued to turn. And somewhere in the darkness, the unified defense fleet kept watch, ready for whatever came next. Because the greatest lesson of the Devourer War was simple. The universe was dangerous, and survival required not just strength, but the wisdom to stand together when darkness came calling. Humanity had been called warmongers. They proved the galaxy right. But they also proved that warriors could choose to protect rather than conquer, to save rather than subjugate, and to seek peace even while carrying the deadliest fleet in galactic history. That balance between strength and restraint, between capability and compassion, would define the new era. The galaxy was not perfect, but it was learning. And that was enough.